Hi, and welcome back. In this segment, we're actually going to cover some... I don't like that. See, now you made me all nervous, Jeff.
I can leave. But...
Right. In this segment, we're going to talk about some basic vegetable fabrication and the classical culinary cuts that we use to not only make ourselves more consistent, but just become more comfortable and more accurate with our knives on a daily basis. So the first thing I'm going to show you is basic slicing and dicing of onions. This first one is a dice cut. We're going to take off the top of the onion and we're going to maintain the root section of the onion intact. We will cut that straight down through, and notice how that root is now holding together our onion for us. So for a dice, we're going to make some lateral cuts, and we're going to space those according to the size of the finished product that we want. I'm working at approximately 1/4 of an inch. Once we get our lateral slices about 7/8 of the way through the onion, we're going to change and we're going to start cutting down through. Again, 7/8 of the way through the onion, not all the way. One trick that I like to use is I like to follow the vein structure of the onions. And that way I get the most consistent cut that I can from any particular onion. So now, once we have our lateral and our vertical cuts, we're going to come across and we're going to finish the dice. I'll just trim up the end here a little bit for high yield. So, and you can easily change the size of the finished product just by modifying how much width there is between your lateral and your vertical slices. So this is a diced onion. Next, we will do what we call a French cut onion, a julienne, or sliced. For the sliced onion, we're going to want to remove both the root section and the stem section. What that does is it will allow the leaves of the onion to fall aside while we cut them. We're going to cut in half, and again, following the vein structure of the onion, we're going to start slicing through and increase the angle as we come to the top of the onion. So notice again how I always cut towards the center and how my angle increases as I come to the top. The reason we do that is so that we can get these nice, consistent pieces from our onion. A great thing about this structure is that because we cut with the grain, it maintains the integrity of the onion through a long cooking process, and it'll actually hold together much better than any other style of slicing. So there we have our French cut or julienne onion. Next up, we have a classic carrot cut. This is called an oblique. So this is a great cut to expose numerous facets on the vegetable. That way, when you glaze them or you lightly butter them or you season them with a little bit of olive oil, you get a lot of light refraction off of the plate, and it just makes for a very nice, very multifaceted presentation. And that is an oblique. So next up, we're going to talk about the classic cuts. So like I said, these are not necessarily super high yield product, but this is a great way to practice, to get better with your knife, to get more comfortable with the classic shapes of the kitchen, and also it just makes you faster. So first thing we're going to do is take a peeled potato and we're going to square it. So what this does is it gives us a nice rectangular shape to work with, and it allows us to get nice square cuts. So notice I've got 90-degree angles all around that potato. Next up, since these cuts are gonna be approximately 2 inches, we're gonna go ahead and square this off completely. So the first cut I wanna show you is called a julienne, and a julienne is 1/8 of an inch by 1/8 of an inch by 2 inches. And by practicing these cuts, again, we become more comfortable with our knives and more comfortable with any vegetable product that we may have to process. So that is our first classical cut, a julienne. Now from that same cut, the julienne, we can get what's called a brunoise. And a brunoise is 1/8 of an inch by 1/8 of an inch by 1/8 of an inch, or 1/8 of an inch cubed. The easy way to do that is cut juliennes and then cut 1/8 inch squares off of those strips. And here we have the classical brunoise, 1/8 of an inch cubed. Another version of the julienne is a fine julienne. This is a 1/16 of an inch by 1/16 of an inch by 2 inches. This is a very delicate cut. It's not often used, but it's great to know how to do it. These we can actually stack up a little bit, and then we're going to cut our 1/16 inch sections, which will yield us our finished fine julienne. 1/16 of an inch by 1/16 of an inch by 2 inches. And just like the juliennes and the brunoises, you can actually cut fine brunoise from the fine julienne. This is a great garnish cut. It's nice for inclusions in dressings or consommes, but it really shows that you've refined your knife skills and that you can really make your knife do what you want it to. And again, that is a fine brunoise, 1/16 of an inch cubed. Next up, we have a bâtonnet. And a bâtonnet is 1/4 of an inch by 1/4 of an inch by 2 inches. This is another long cut. And again, we cut off 1/4 inch sections, and then we're going to cut 1/4 inch longs. This cut sometimes is referred to as allumette. There we go. So this is our bâtonnet, 1/4 of an inch by 1/4 of an inch by 2 inches. From bâtonnets, if you dice, you can get small dice. Small dice is 1/4 of an inch cubed. Small dice is one of the more common shapes that you'll actually see in a classical kitchen. It's very, very prevalent, and it can be achieved with a wide variety of fruits and vegetables. Next up, we have our medium dice. Again, we're going to start with a squared potato. I like to use potatoes because they're soft, and you don't have to work as hard to achieve your desired shapes. Though all of these cuts can be done with traditional hard vegetables such as rutabagas, turnips, beets, carrots, anything that has a little bit of body to it, so it can maintain its shape. So next up, we're doing our medium dice, and again, that's 1/2 an inch cubed. So we start with our 1/2 inch slabs, then we go to 1/2 inch strips, and then we cut into 1/2 inch cubes. And this is another very common cut that you'll see in the kitchen. So there we have our medium dice, 1/2 an inch cubed. Another cut in the dice family is the large dice. This is honestly one of the more challenging cuts that there are to perform. I don't know why, but it seems to give a lot of people issues. This is 3/4 of an inch cubed. So first of all, we want to establish that 3/4 inch width, then the 3/4 inch length, and then the 3/4 inch dice. We have our large dice. And that concludes our classical cuts. So starting at the beginning, we have our fine julienne, 1/16 of an inch by 1/16 of an inch by 2, fine brunoise, 1/16 of an inch cubed, julienne, 1/8 of an inch by 1/8 of an inch by 2, brunoise, 1/8 of an inch cubed. Then we go to bâtonnet, 1/4 of an inch by 1/4 of an inch by 2 inches. We have our small dice, 1/4 of an inch cubed, medium dice, 1/2 inch cubed, and large dice, 3/4 inches cubed.